Let's talk a little about organized money versus unorganized money. Some people's idea of organized money is that they've sat down with their bank or their financial planner, laid out their goals, short, medium term, long term goals, and put together a plan to get there. But that's not the kind of organized that we're talking about here. So, organized in the sense of realizing limitations and taking steps to compensate is what we're talking about. So, for example, let's think of organized labor. So, whatever you may say, whether you like them or not, on the average, to a large extent, workers who belong to a labor union have better wages and better benefits than comparable workers who don't belong to a union. It's as simple as that because of their organization. So what people call the divide and conquer strategy can be used against those who are not in a union in ways that it would be difficult to do to those in a union. That's one example. Many of you also may have given money to charitable organizations or non-profits in the past, or maybe a church. Now, imagine that any of those organizations, whatever their goals are that you're trying to support, did not exist. Say, for example, you've given money to an organization trying to feed the poor, and maybe you give them $10, for example. Do you think that you can do better with the $10 in your hand than giving it to an organization that's equipped to find those poor people, equipped to, by pulling resources of many people together, to negotiate discounts? For example, if you want to give food to a poor person, either you give them from your own food, or you may have to go and buy something at a McDonald's or some other fast food place. A union gospel mission that feeds the poor, for example, is able to negotiate large discounts from caterers who can deliver food similar to what a McDonald's or a Wendy's or a Subway serve, and get it to these poor people at a lower price. So in essence, your $10 contribution can feed more people. Maybe it can feed 4 people, whereas if you had gone to buy something at Subway or Quiznos, you may only have fed 2. So that's an example of being organized. And so the first question some people may ask would be, who cares? Do we even need to organize? Why bother? So let's talk about why it's necessary to even organize. Why should you be a part of organized money? Why not remain unorganized? So let's open a new document up here and we can use that to have a clear understanding of what we're doing. So the first thing we're addressing is why organize. Now, there was something that came out recently from Malden Economics, something to do with public pensions. It was titled Public Pensions Live and Let Die. And the writer was just talking about how many large cities in the United States and even many states like the state of Illinois, have unfunded pension liabilities. They have promised to pay benefits to their workers that they have not set money aside for. And so if I just go to this section of the document, the bottom line, Inman, that's the Wharton finance professor, Robert Inman, who wrote a paper in which he called the pension funding problem the invisible crisis. Invisible because it is hiding in plain sight. It is there, but everybody is pretending that it's not there. The taxpayers are not thinking about it. The workers who have been promised, even though the money is not there, they are not really thinking about it. So the bottom line Inman said was that there were $3 trillion worth of unfunded pension liabilities at the state level and $400 billion of unfunded liabilities at the large city level. That turns out to be about $10,000 per American citizen. Well, that's the emphasis of the author of this document. Now, if we go down again to another section of the document, he did say that it is obvious to me that there are no good solutions. Current taxpayers will wind up having to pay higher taxes and or maybe a combination of both, receive a lower level of services in return for their contributions. So taxes might remain the same, but then you get fewer services and benefits, which is still a backdoor way of raising taxes, which is what politicians have done over the last 20, 30 years. They tell people they are cutting taxes, so they cut taxes by 1% and then cut services and benefits by 10, 15%. And that's why now people are discovering that their kids come out of university and they owe $30,000, $40,000, $60,000, $80,000, $100,000, even though taxes were cut, in quotes. So that's an example of raising taxes by pretending to cut it, or even leaving taxes the way they are supposed to be, but cutting the benefits that those taxes used to pay for. Or, as Inman noted, the solution can come in the form of lower property values. Higher taxes mean the value of your home declines relative to the cost of the taxes. That's just a fact. But here is what I wanted to focus on. The ultimate losers will be the people who own those properties whose value declines. And down here it says, politics being what it is, the losing groups will be the most diffuse, unorganized ones. And these are the taxpayers or workers, and they are also the ones who own these properties. So until they will be the losers until they revolt, because there will be a backlash at some point. But just focus on this highlighted red portion. The losing groups will be the most diffuse, unorganized ones. And this is what the billionaires have over everybody else. They are very few in number, less than 0.001% of the population. But to hear politicians talk and see what politicians do, you would think everyone was a billionaire, because politicians push everything the billionaires want, whether or not it is for the public good, whether or not it benefits the other 99.9%, they don't care. All they care about is, well, the billionaires want it. We have to do everything we can. Doesn't matter how many poor people die or get hurt in the process. We will do all we can to make sure that the billionaires get what they want. That is the power of organized money or organized capital. So that's why you want to consider being a part of organized money. So the next thing that we can focus on is the fact that it is easy to belong to unorganized money. There are no rules. There is no fee. Well, the fees are not direct fees. They are backdoor fees. you pay the fees in other ways, but at the front end, it looks like it's free to belong to unorganized money. It is the default. Once you are born, unless you are born into organized money, you automatically get membership in unorganized money. And that's where you find more than 99.5% of the population who are working for the benefit of the other less than half percent of the population to enjoy. But it takes some effort to belong to organized money. If you want to belong to organized money, then you will have to get off your back and do something, because it's not going to come to you on a platter of gold. And in fact, organized money does its best to keep unorganized money unorganized. In other words, they don't want you to organize. Maybe you don't know it, but there's a reason why the large corporations hate labor unions with a passion. Because as long as they are organized and remain organized, it means less profits, less bonuses, less opportunities to steal from the system for the people who run or own the corporations, as the case may be. Those who run it when it's a public corporation with many shareholders, and those who own it when it's a private corporation. You can see how the people who own Walmart hate unions with a passion. So you want to be in organized money, you have to do something. So let's go quickly through some bullet points just to shed some light on this idea of organized money that we're talking about. So most people may not have $1 million or more, but most people have access to $5. And your $5 in your pocket, you could go to a fast food place and get something with it. There are very few things that you can do with it. But if you were to pull it with another 1 million people to make up $5 million, suddenly that pool takes on new powers. And one advantage of organized money is what we have highlighted as arithmetic versus geometric progression. Let me put that in visual form for you. So if I say 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So with each new number, I'm adding 2. Or let's even go ahead and add 5. Or let's even add 10, just for the sake of example. So 1, 11, 21, 31, 41, 51. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now let's just go with 6. So we want 6. So that will take us, if we can add 10 at each turn, we will go from 1 to 51 in 5 incremental steps. That's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. In 5 incremental steps, we'll get to 51. Now, let's look at, and so that's what we call an arithmetic progression, because you're adding. Now, let's look at a geometric progression. In a geometric progression, you multiply. So, if you are multiplying, so let's go with even 2. So 1, you multiply by 2, by 2, by 2, by 2, by 2. So in 5 steps, using a factor of 2, we can get to 32, which is almost, it's more than halfway to the 51 that we got to by arithmetic even though arithmetic we were adding 10. But if we were to do the same 10, so 1 times 10 times 10 times 10, well, since I'm using commas, maybe I should use colon because I have to use commas to show a demarcation. So times 10 and one more. So this is a geometric progression. So for any comparable number, here we see what happens if you add 2. So you add 2, you add 2, you add 2, you add 2. In 5 steps, you get to 11. If you're multiplying in 5 steps, you get to 32. And the further out you go, the wider the disparity. So if you did one more, here it will take you to 13. Here it will take you to 64. So 32 divided by 11 is just about 3. 64 divided by 13 is about 5. If you go again one more, you get 15. And here you get 128. So 64 divided by 13 is about 5. 128 divided by 15 is about 8.5. And that's how it's going to keep getting wider the further out you go. So the people on the billionaire side, they have the advantages of geometric progression. They can multiply their money. The people on the unorganized money side, they function by arithmetic progression. They get money added in very small, tiny increments because, first of all, they have to go and work, then they have to pay high taxes. The other side, they are multiplying their money and they are paying low taxes. Many of them are paying $0 in taxes. We can talk about that in a different presentation than this one, but I think you get the picture. So, and what's interesting also is that all money gets organized eventually, but it is the people who put the organization together, the people who put it together get to extract the most value from the organization. So if somebody starts a non-profit group, it can be helping a cause, maybe feeding the poor or helping some orphans in a third world country. But you would also see that the person who started the organization is also benefiting. You know, he can pay himself a high salary. He can bring in his children to continue to run it after he's gone. So all his family members are sure of a job with good pay and a clear career path if they join that organization. Same thing, even with a church, the person who starts it gets to benefit down the line. Not necessarily through salary, just because they have a large following, they can write books, they can make videos, they can sell those to their followers, and they can benefit in that way. So, but realize that all money gets organized. So even when you go to save in a bank, whether you save only $10 or 100 or 1,000, it gets added up with the savings of other people, many other people. And then suddenly the banks have deposits adding up to $100 billion, $1 trillion, as the case may be. Same thing with taxes. Maybe your tax bill comes to 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, whatever it is. But when it gets added up with that of many other people, suddenly becomes hundreds of billions in dollars or trillions. So let's go further down the line. So there is value in any effort to pool resources. But what you need to focus on is who extracts the value, because you have no qualms, you have no objections to banks gathering money from depositors or savers. You have no objections to the government collecting money in taxes, or even if you have any objections, you still comply. So In this case, there is value in the effort to pool resources. For example, banks benefit some people, a tiny few, but not you, the depositor, not you, the saver. The benefit is not coming to you. You are the ones who, in a sense, get victimized so that a few people benefit. So pooling is not a new idea. Governments do it through taxes, banks do it through deposits. But who controls the banks? The same people who control the government. And whose interests are they looking out for? Do you believe they're looking out for your interests or for the interests of the billionaires who own and or run these organizations or institutions? So I am convinced that they're not looking out for my interests. If you think they're looking out for your interests, then good luck. And one other thing you have to look at is organized money pays little or no taxes. It is unorganized money. The workers who have to work for a living, they are the ones who pay most of the tax bill. And like I said earlier on, everyone has a seat at the table of unorganized money. You don't have to do anything. It's like they say, if you fail to plan, by default, you are planning to fail. That's what it is about unorganized money. If you don't belong to organized money, you're automatically enrolled in unorganized money. On the other side, organized money does not have an open door. They are not accepting applications. Two things that we need to point out about organized money, or let's say billionaires, for example. They don't want any part of your world. They don't want to have to work for a living. They want others to work and they take the benefits. The other thing is they don't want you in their world. So they don't want you to be able to do what they are doing, which is to not be the ones to work, to not be the ones to pay taxes, but to be the ones to benefit from the work of others and have others pay the taxes. They don't want to do what you do, but they also want to make sure that you don't have an opportunity to do what they are doing. Because if everybody can do what they are doing, nobody will do what you are doing. So then what should a smart worker do? You make your own door. That is what the fractional billionaire project is about. So, and then you can ask yourself, if organizing or pooling was an option, why does it sound alien to you? Well, traditionally, technology wasn't available to facilitate the sort of collaboration possible today. Coincidentally, more than 90% of the people use the technology we have now, social media, Facebook, and all that, for things that help less than 1% of the population. So they use it for Facebook, they use it to shop, and so on. So, but all along, it was always easier for 10 people to write a check, each of $1 million, than to round up 1 million people to write $10 checks each, which will get you to the same answer, $10 million. Furthermore, the richest few have always had these exclusive clubs where they meet and they all know each other to a very large extent, which is not the case with the unorganized millions and billions who are working to benefit them. So traditionally, the only organization that 90% of the population knew anything about and used was labor unions. And those ones organized for better jobs, wages, and benefits. But because they did not organize their money, organized money has weakened and continues to weaken those labor unions through what I refer to as death by 1,000 cuts. So the unions are not getting any stronger. They are getting weaker with each passing year. But the logic of this whole thing is you are better off in an organized money pool than remaining unorganized. Even though you may think you're organized because you've put together a financial plan or you've talked to your bank and every month you're saving something, or your financial services provider is doing some automatic debits towards your retirement or savings. All those options you see are just options for unorganized money. Unorganized diffuse, and they're the ones who take all the losses. And Don't just take my word for it. Let's look at Wikipedia. Let let's see let's see something from there very quickly. So there's this Wikipedia entry on market timing, and this it talks about how the 2008 decline in the stock markets was instructive. While many retail stockbrokers were instructed by their brokerages or their employers to tell their clients, the retail clients, not to sell, but instead to look to the long term. The market makers at those same employers were busy selling to cash to avoid losses for the brokerage's large institutional clients. The result was that the retail clients were left with huge losses, while the institutions fled to the safety of short-term bonds and money market funds, thereby avoiding similar losses. So, and guess what? As those large institutions were selling, who are the buyers? The retail clients. So they sold a share to you of a company at $50 per share. And then when the market melted or tanked or fell, they now had the opportunity to come back and buy 2 units or 3 units of those same shares at $15 or $20 per share from the same retail clients. And this is how money gets vacuumed from those who never had much to start with and gets gifted, for lack of a better word, to those who already have more than enough. So we're going to leave it here. I think a word, as they say, is enough for the wise. So the choice is yours, but you would see some advantages to being a part of the fractional billionaire projects, which is not going to be open forever. At some point, the door will be closed because the whole idea works only if there are few believers and many unbelievers. So there's a need for many people not to believe in the idea so that those who believe in it can do exactly what the billionaires do, that the other 99.5+% of the population will not do. So thanks for listening. And if you have not yet signed up to join the Fractional Billionaire Project, it will be a good idea for you to sign up as quickly as you can before the door closes.